Welcome back to the Weekly News Roundup. These recorded live Fridays, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want to catch the show live, see what's going on in between the news clips and things like that. So today we are going to have a look at, we got privacy, security, we have one data leak, one AI news, we got business, and we got SillyVille. So that's what we have. I think that's all we have. I don't know. I think that's all we have. We'll get through here and see what it looks like. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get started here. First up, Proton open sources all of the Proton Drive apps. So, of course, Proton has been doing a lot of really good things in VPNs and in email and in cloud storage components. And they've had a lot of apps for a while, but there was a little bit of controversy over nobody knew what the sources were. So they have open sourced everything so that they have ultimate transparency and privacy in everything they're doing. So this is the apps for Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android. Boo, no Linux. Hopefully we'll get something like that. But hey, at least if you're beginning your journey of free software, then you will have that as an option. So there is what Proton is up to. Good work over there, guys. Now, this is a fun one from Australia. How did telemarketers get my number? So this is a privacy advocate writing for The Guardian who dug into the labyrinth of data brokers. Now, this applies to Australia, but we can assume that the factors going on in Australia are probably going on over here in the United States as well. Of course, Australia has deeper privacy regulations. And what the article author here, and who is the article author for this? Oh, come on. Where is the article author? I wish I could tell you who the article author was, but I'm not seeing it. So this person actually comes up with a startling source of all of the information. So this person basically says, I'm going to summarize a lot of this. I don't want to read it all word for word, but we'll read some word for word now down there towards the bottom. So he says, last year I got a lot of unsolicited phone calls, mostly people trying to sell things, which came as a surprise because as a data scientist, this author is very careful about what type of personal information is shared into the world. So they took a investigation several months' time and mostly just asking people information and informing them of the laws that they had to provide information about where they got the number. And the author here said that most people just kind of hung up on him when he or she started to ask those hard questions. Because, you know, it's the guy doesn't have time. If you're not a hot prospect, you know, you're wasting their time, you're wasting their money. Well, he ended up getting a guy that he actually got a name. And he did say he's on the Do Not Call registry. So in theory, he shouldn't be getting any of these things. And he said the Australian Communications and Media Authority registry holds more than 12 million phone numbers, including mine. The registry is supposed to block unsolicited calls. But last year, despite being on the list, I began to receive dozens of unwanted calls, on average about 3 a day. So he started asking the people about the information. They're asking them for the Australian business numbers, which in theory they are supposed to provide if asked, but people kept on hanging up. And he said he ultimately found a person named Paul who was very helpful. So most callers hung up the moment I started asking questions until one day I spoke with a man named Paul who worked in the real estate sector, an industry with more than $10 trillion as of 2024. The high-value real estate market makes our personal data especially valuable to businesses operating within the industry. So the unique thing he says about Paul is that he knew my real name, whereas most other telemarketers only had the pseudonyms that this researcher used to protect the real identity online. Paul explained that he had licensed my data from the real estate giant CoreLogic Australia. So this discovery pushed me in to dig deeper. After a lot of back and forth, I finally obtained my data from CoreLogic. The amount of information was small, but very accurate. Especially considering the steps I'd taken to hide my identity, it was it made me wonder where they got it from, as only organizations such as utility companies, banks, or the government would have that type of information. CoreLogic said in an email, CoreLogic gets data from a variety of sources. Most of the information we collect comes from public records, which we license from government departments and agencies. We also collect personal information from third parties, such as through real estate agents, tenacity and strata managers, and financial institutions and marketing database providers. See, the author says this is a troubling discovery because the institutions on which we depend for essential public services, housing, and finance, from which they cannot hide the real identity, are actually the ones selling it to the brokers. So the very organizations you can't control are the ones that are selling it to the brokers, despite the Australian government's like, we are taking strong stances against privacy. You cannot violate people's privacy. Yet, apparently, it is the government and the higher class business institutions that are actually the ones sharing the data. And so this is deeply troubling in that respect. So he does say that the investigation didn't end there. CoreLogic revealed that it purchased the data from the Australian data broker firm Smarter in August 2023, coincided with the surge in unsolicited calls. Through Smarter, I learned they had purchased my data in 2016 from another data broker, 8 Dragons Digital. Smarter also admitted to selling my data to various companies, all without my consent. Determined to investigate the origin of the online data trail, I contacted 8 Dragons Digital, which calls itself a leading global consumer data agency. It collects personal data for big brands including Energy Australia, Vodafone, Enerma, Nissan, Johnny Walker, American Express, the good guys. I think that should be the bad guys, but whatever. And even the Australian Labor Party. Company claimed it collected my data in 2014 marketing campaign and likely passed it to at least 50 other companies. However, it had no records to verify the marketing campaign or to prove that I had given consent. So apparently what this person finds, Priya Dev is the author here. So what this person finds, what Priya finds here, is that it is the government and the institutions which are leaking the data, causing the problem of all of the telemarketers and all this information. So let that settle in. That's quite disturbing, to say the least. On to our last one here is automotive industry. Now, this is a neat one because we're starting to see the tides change and people starting to wake up and go, maybe indeed I do have something to hide. And so Fox Rothschild is a law firm, and they don't do a lot of blog posts, maybe only a couple a year. But when they do, they're actually pretty good as far as the basic information, even though they're short. So what he says here is data sharing in the automotive industry. Of course, this is a big topic. It's been making the rounds in the various news articles. He says there is a new wave of lawsuits pertaining to data sharing in the automotive industry. So here is what they're discussing with the clients. Number one is personal data is broader than you think. Things like the average speed, acceleration, events, hard brake events, distance, late night driving, music that is being played in the vehicle, and information from the driver's use of Bluetooth to make telephone calls can be personal and even sensitive personal information when used or shared to create a profile on the user. We've been seeing this with a number of different lawsuits across all industries. Personal data is expanding and companies should address this. So they say that their plaintiffs are looking at adequate disclosures in the marketing materials that are available before the sale, not just in the terms and privacy notices. This isn't per se. Also, I would add, they should have the ability to say, absolutely not. I want it opted out, and you need to go and remove the module from the vehicle allowing such data collection. We should be able to have that capability. Getting back to the article. This isn't news per se. FTC has been looking into the marketing materials for a while. It's not getting, but it is getting renewed energy. Companies should take a look at the marketing materials and what they say, have a privacy lawyer look into it. So they say if you get access restriction of use of data request, it is important to respond on time with transparency. So if you buy a car and it says, well, you have 2 weeks to submit a written notice, including everything under the sun that you do not want to be tracked, give us all the data now so we won't have to collect it later, He's doing that. So that's what they're saying. Respond that quickly. And then these are the creative ways they're pursuing these legal cases. Plaintiffs are getting creative with the causes of action, now adding impermissible purpose of data under the FCRA. I have no idea what that is. UDAP, the unfair and deceptive acts at all states, the tortious interference with insurers, since they're sharing data with insurance companies and causing your rates to go up, common law invasion of privacy, and unjust enrichment. So they're making money on your data when you didn't even know that that data was going up. And so that is the type of stuff going on. So this is becoming real in the industry. So we got to keep tabs on what all is going on as we move on into this brave new world where, frankly, we just need to sit down and be like, we need to stop the data collect. Like, we need to put the hammer down. No more data sharing. We're done. No more data sharing. Just done. That's kind of what we need to work on. All right. So let's move on over to security news next. So a new variant of Necro Trojan has infected more than 100 million Android devices. And yes, these are in the Google Play Store. So Google Play Stores, like, they're even right now blocking you from installing applications not in the Play Store. Like, you go to install an application, it's like, you're not allowed to install this. You have to install the version on the Google Play Store instead, because this is for your ultimate security. However, 11 million devices have been infected with a Trojan backdoor, which has been inside of the Google Play Store. So this happened by a supply chain breach. So it was, and guess what it was? It was one of the items that they add into the apps to allow you to collect data and sell advertisements. Isn't that great? So researchers believe the malware found its way into the Play Store through the tainted software developer kit used to integrate advertising capabilities into the apps. You see, guys, we need to banish ads from the internet and the world. Like the campaign for the ad-free life. We need to resurrect such a thing. And frankly, we need to get to the point where it's like, I want to be able to live my life without being constantly bombarded with an advertisement, whether it's an app or anything else. Now, I've done a really good job of that myself. I don't see ads on a day-to-day basis. Actually, I saw it. I walked inside the house here yesterday, and the Super Bowl, or not Super Bowl, a football game was on. Sorry, I don't know anything about, the dudes in tights throwing around a dead pig. But the game was on, and there was a commercial break. And guess what it was? It was that ring. We talked about that ring. You just slide this little ring on, and it'll measure all of your health metrics and put it into the cloud. It's so amazing. You can sync it to your phone. You can compete with your friends, and you can share all of your health data with some data analytics company that's sharing that subsequent data with your health insurance company. I hope your rates don't go up too high, because the average person is actually a couch potato. But that being said, that's the first ad I think I've seen in like a week or 2 or 3, other than when I went to the movie theater. So I went to the movie theater. Okay, I understand they're going to show me previews of movies. That's fine. But if I'm just living my basic life, I don't want to be constantly inundated. And what is this? A supply chain breach tainting the SDK developer kit because people wanted to cram advertisements into their app. And it's all on the Google Play Store. So the Google Play Store forcing us to use the Google Play Store in and of itself is the problem. That's the real monopoly. I don't think they have a monopoly as long as I can choose to sideload a separate application. But once you start forcing me to install what you want me to install, now we have a problem. All right, TikTok links are being used to hijack Microsoft accounts. This is effectively the same type of breach that took Linus Tech Tips. And so, in that case, somebody clicked on a malicious link that stole the browser cookies. This is kind of the similar principle, a little bit different, though. TikTok has a way of masking the URLs, just like YouTube has a way of masking URLs, and Twitter and all these companies have ways of masking URLs. So if you put a link in a YouTube video and you pull it out, it's a YouTube video with a link reference allowing tracking to go back to YouTube or Google or wherever else to see the effectiveness of that particular link. And so what they're doing here is they are targeting people with phishing emails that look very legitimate, masking it through 3 or 4 redirects, starting with a TikTok URL and landing on a page that's a very convincing malware copy of a Microsoft account. So when people go to log into the account, it now allows the hackers to gain access to all of the information, including allowing them to spoof the MFA. And so, yeah, this is certainly a problematic thing. I don't know what to tell you. Well, Kaspersky, of course, we know the government's like, Kaspersky, you got to get out of here. You're that evil Putin Russian. And it's like, I think that this is the stupidest thing the American the American government did. Well, I don't know. Okay, maybe putting a kleptomaniac with the nuclear codes might have been stupider, but what can we say? So they're like, Kaspersky, you got to get out of here. Evil Putin bad, And so they wanted to get Kaspersky, so they banished Kaspersky from United States. So what Kaspersky decided to do is delete itself and install Ultra AV without any warning. So people woke up one day and all of a sudden they had no Kaspersky and they had a brand new antivirus that they never installed on their system. This is kind of problematic. All right, Kaspersky, I'm kind of on your side, but this is not it, man. This is not you being you. All right. Who knows? Maybe they're just like, yeah, all right, government, American government. Now, they say here that they're doing this because they want to honor people's subscription rates, and they realize that some people would be forced to not receive security updates for active subscriptions. And so they worked with this other company, Ultra AV, owned by the Pengo Group here. And they said, well, we are just replacing ours with theirs under the same subscription terms. If you want to keep it, you can keep it. If you want to get rid of it, you can get rid of it. But it's kind of Kaspersky's way of honoring what people have already paid for in the event somebody's purchased a year subscription and Kaspersky can't update itself after, I forget exactly when, like October or something. So this is probably not the way to do that. But I think a big pop-up explaining the factor, click OK to continue, or hey, maybe click here for a partial refund, that would have been a way better approach than installing some other piece of software, because you're starting to kind of act like malware when you do that. But, for the most part, though, I am kind of on Kaspersky's side on a lot of things. So this one, no, I'm not really on their side on that one. Now let's have a look at our single data leak. I was thinking about not even doing a data leak, but this was just beautiful. 100 million plus U.S. citizens have their records leaked by a background check service. That is right. You got to work for a background check to work here. Okay, great. And there you have it. Private records, private reports, private people searcher, the people searchers, people search USA. These sound super legit. The data included names, emails, IP addresses, user agents, encrypted passwords, partial payment information, home address, date of birth, phone numbers, property records, legal records, property records. I don't know why property records is listed twice, but it is. Family, relatives, neighbors' data, and employment history. To make things worse, the data of 2.3 plus million users was subscribed to the data services were also leaked. So these are companies that are just collecting and harvesting data. So it's very possible all of us in America may have been involved in this data leak. I've never had anything to do with any of these companies. I did not consent to having my data with any of these companies. They wanted to collect it. They wanted to store it, and they weren't insecure. I think all of these companies need to close. This probably sounds like it's one company with a bunch of names. They need to close. We need to strip all the assets from them, all the assets from the CEOs, and distribute it among the people and be like, you want to mess around and not have good security? That's the case. Who knows? It's probably like the Equihacks leak, where that leak happened because they simply failed to update one package in an Apache server because they were lazy and they didn't want to pay a guy to do it. Bunch of nonsense. So here you go, protecting yourself after a data breach. Oh, yeah. Good luck with that. And on to our last one today. We have a single AI story next. So let's have a brief look at AI. So finally, Brave brings local AI into the browser. In fact, I just commented something on Twitter today about this because what is it? I think it's Foss puts up an article like, Brave integrates local AI. It's about time. What do you think? I said, stupid idea. Can we have one place where we're not cramming AI into everything? It's full of hallucinations. It rots your brain. It causes sheer stupidity. And frankly, it's not as nearly as reliable as people think. Can we have a place where we do not have AI crammed down our throats? I actually considered removing Brave from my computer over it. But I did go into the settings last night and I looked around all the options. I can't completely disable AI, but I can remove all of the buttons, which effectively I don't think it's going to do anything. But I swear if I see any stupid AI pop up, Brave is getting nuked from my system and I will turn on full-fledged anti-Brave campaign mode. It's ridiculously stupid. Now, if it's one thing if I say, hey, very simple, Brave, put a toggle button, I don't want AI. Turn it all off. I'm okay with that. I don't want AI. Now, the way this is working is they have their Leo assistant, but then you can actually add, it says local AI. It's not actually local. What it is you go in there and you can add whatever AIs you have accounts for. So if you have a ChatGPT account, you can embed the ChatGPT account in there. And when you pull up the AI assistant in Brave, then you can use that AI instead of the whatever one they give you. So for a person that really wants this, this is not a bad idea. You know, here's the model, here's the label, and I guess the username, label, username, the server endpoint, the API key, enter all that kind of stuff, and then you can actually use your own. But what is missing from it is a toggle button to just say, turn AI off entirely. That's what it needs. Brave just needs to have a button, I don't want AI, done. Just toggling that button just removes it from everywhere, prevents it from activating, because I don't want AI. I am sorry, I am going to convert myself to a full-fledged Luddite here if AI keeps on getting crammed down every single orifice of my body, because I do not want AI probing my butthole, nor do I want AI probing my fingertips, nor do I want AI probing my mouth or my nostrils or anything else. I want an AI-free life. There's the other one we can do. The campaign for the AI-free life. I mean, really. Simple here, Brave. Toggle button. Turn off AI. Don't want it. Maybe I might petition them to do so. I don't know. So, yeah, they're all like, oh my God, it's so amazing. It's stupid and ridiculous. Give us a place without AI. All right. Well, if you want to help support the channel, we do have affiliates here. We're highlighting Mint Mobile. I have used my Mint Mobile account for several years all across the country as I travel around the country in my van. And very, very few places I do not have service. Of course, this does use T-Mobile towers, and it is so cheap because you pay a few months up front. So if you do $15 a month paid up front, you pay $45 for 3 months of service. I'm only paying, I think, $180 a year. And that is all I pay for my phone. I pay that once, usually around December. I do not have to look at a phone bill for an entire year, and my phone works flawlessly. So you can have a look at Mint Mobile, tlm.li/mm, if you want to sign up with Mint Mobile using our affiliate code, and that will give you really good and inexpensive internet all across the country. Like I said, I have used it all over the place. I just need to make sure that T-Mobile is going to work in your area. And frankly, I have found most places it does. Out in the deep, deep mountains, deep, deep backwoods, Verizon still works a little bit better. But this works very well in most places I've been, and certainly in nearly every city center. So with that, let's have a look over at business news next. First up in business news, anybody that has an LG Smart TV, you're going to start getting display ads while it's idle, because we need to launch that campaign for the ad-free life. You pause your TV and you're going to get full screen sponsored ads, just like that beautiful picture on the screen. Buy this all new GT700, big electric performance. Don't do that if you're in the state of California. They'll tell you can't charge your car right now. Come on, guys, got to protect that electrical grid. Great. Wonderful. So if you have an LG Smart TV, they are going to start getting an update that's going to roll out pushing advertisements on the thing at every possible orifice. How long before there's always perpetually going to be a little ad in the corner showing you something, like perpetually? Like, you ever see One Crazy Summer, right? And they put together the movie of Cassandra playing at the Dewdrop Inn, and they go to the drive-in and they're playing the ad for it at the bottom corner of the movie at the drive-in theater, right? How long before we get that? And then that becomes normalized. And I was like, well, it's just the ad there, you got to make our money somehow, as if buying the TV did not give LG its money. If they need more money than that, well, that's kind of their business model they need to fix. And no, cramming ads into it is not an appropriate business model. Thank you. But you can go ahead and get the LG Smart TV with full screen ads. I think these are the OLEDs. G4 model will appear across the home screen, content store, and the LG channels. Oh dear. Like, how can people take all these advertisements everywhere? Right. Car software patches are over 20% of recalls. We were having a discussion on this last night. Recall means a different thing in different countries. Like, I guess in the United States, the recall specifically deals with a safety function. And so the problem is that we're getting circumstances where cars are so software laden and programmed so poorly to begin with that they need these constant software patches. It's kind of like we're seeing this with video games. You see, back in the old days, your Nintendo and your Super Nintendo, heck, even your PS1, right? They had to have the game finished and tested because there's no updating it. You get the game, you put it into the system, you play it, and it works. And yeah, there are a few bugs in there. I mean, you go back to the old Castlevania 2, you now possess Dracula's rib. Possess, huh? For a long time, we actually thought that was a real word. I mean, it was just an error in the programming, fairly minor. Gameplay worked just fine, but, a little bug. Nowadays, they would issue a software patch and patch the thing up, but I now possess Dracula's rib, apparently, whatever that means. All right. But now, of course, these cars are now getting online as well, and so now we're having to deal with situations where the cars are online, they're constantly getting hacked, but they also have really bad code because they don't hire competent coders. So this was one of those cases where one of these left-wing, right-wing debates. So St. Louis and a few other cities were suing Kia and I think Kia and Hyundai maybe. It was a couple of car manufacturers because the cars were too easy to steal. So the left-wing people are going, you got to sue the car manufacturers. It's too easy to steal. Every right-wing pundit is sitting here going, why didn't you just arrest the people stealing the cars? Now, I agree with that premise. If you arrest the people stealing the cars, even if the car is fundamentally insecure and you have people on the street that are not prone to steal cars, your cars probably won't get stolen. But those right-wingers who were pushing that narrative, they didn't understand the technology. Kia in that car put a hard-wired admin credential from Stack Overflow. Anybody with $20 of stuff from Amazon could walk up to a car, push a button, and get into it. That's a fundamental problem. Now, yes, arrest the guy who steals the car and throw him in jail because stealing the car, no matter if it's easy or if it's hard, should be a jailable offense. Now, it's not, unfortunately, in our cities these days. Okay, but yes, we do actually need to take steps to secure cars because if I can just walk up to a car and push a button, it completely defeats the purpose of having a lock on the car to begin with. And that is kind of what's going on here. So, we got to have a little bit of balance in that. Both sides are completely ignorant, particularly when it comes to technology. I mean, really. And of course, on to our chief article here. We have the Piracy Battle. So this is going back to the Cox versus Sony. So in this, there was an original ruling on this, and then the appeals court came out and said that yes, Cox had to take liability in the people's piracy, and the court effectively said you must cut them off from the internet. So you're basically telling people that you have to cut them off from a critical service in our modern era. And the fact of the matter is there's not a lot of competition in ISPs in America. And so if you get booted off of Cox Internet, you may not be able to have internet. And of course, everybody wants you on the internet. So this is going back up to the Supreme Court, but every ISP is coming down and siding, of course, with Cox, saying this is ridiculous. But the legal question boils down over, can the ISP be liable for what people do on its network? And what is the definition of willful infringement, and what is the definition of cutting people off? Because effectively Sony just wanted to go without any form of due process and tell Cox, these people are over here abusing our service, just delete their access to the internet. Cox is saying we can't just delete their access to the internet because there's no due process involved here. We need to see what's going on. And if somebody is legitimately breaking the copyright laws, then maybe the streaming services shouldn't have gone too far out of control. But no, in all honesty, if somebody's going to break those rules, you need to have the due process. You can't hold Cox Internet liable because Cox Internet shouldn't be spying on what everybody's doing. So Sony needs to do good old-fashioned police work, figure out who the people are, and go after them. Or maybe Sony can just rot in hell because we have serious fundamental problems with our current copyright system. Now, I agree with copyright to an extent. Okay, I do. I completely think our copyright system is messed up, but we need an element of copyright. And for the people that say nothing should ever be copyrighted, if nothing is ever copyrighted, there is never an incentive to create something amazing. All right. I can't take a year writing a good book, which will encourage you to examine the technology around you, to have you take it and just freely distribute it everywhere. I need to have something, because if I don't have some form of protection to sell my product and make an income so I can pay my bills, then, I have no incentive to do that. And if you're just going to steal the stuff and just distribute it anyway, and I completely cut me out of any reward of taking the very difficult time to do that, then that's meaningless. So we have to have a degree of copyright. The problem is copyright is going way too far. So we need to reform. If I would reform copyright, number one, I don't think corporations should be able to own copyright specifically. It needs to stay at the individual creator level. Number two, the copyright should be valid for up to a certain period of time after the creator's death. I think 20 years is a good time. It allows the future family a few years of gainful fruit on the ancestors, or the family members' work. But after 20 years, okay, we need to hit into the public domain. All right. We also need to have a circumstance where if a company goes belly up or a product is no longer capable, it's immediately public domain. We can't be having this buying and selling of various copyright holders of things that nobody's ever heard of. We need to step back to solid copyrights, individual people, short periods of time. And, and also if I have purchased a CD or a DVD or anything else, I should have full fair right to format shift that for my own personal use. That's not complicated. And that's the type of stuff that we need to do. So I agree that we need some copyright, but I also agree that we need to have some copyright reform. So let me know what you think about all of that stuff down below. And with that, let's have a look over at your favorite place and mine. Let's see what's going on in SillyVille. Microsoft, I've talked about this before. Microsoft has a serious branding problem. They released an app called the Windows app for running Windows apps. So Microsoft releases a new Windows app called Windows app for running Windows apps. This is the same company that has a service called Outlook and a product called Outlook. They have a service called Office and they have a product called Office. These people have no earthly idea what the hell they're doing. This is why the Surface RT failed. They had a Surface Pro and a Surface RT, and nobody knew the difference behind them except the people that were really involved in this, including the salesman at Best Buy, who's like, well, this one's more secure. Well, I'll take that one, but I can't install any applications on it, and brings it back. Okay, so Microsoft has had a fundamental problem with branding, and this one just takes the cake. They release a new Windows app called Windows app for running Windows apps. I am in window appception. I have no earthly idea what the hell is going on. Now, ultimately, this is for Microsoft Remote Desktops, Mac OS, iOS, and Android, allowing you to run a variety of Windows apps, including a server-based or an instance of another Windows system on the net. So if you had your Windows computer set up on a good internet with a remote desktop, you could actually get into your Windows computer on your phone using the Windows app called Windows App for running the Windows apps. Microsoft has got to get its branding under control. This is just nonsense. All right, Mark Zuckerberg has a chat with an AI clone as the human of that clone hangs out with him. I could not find video of this other than what we have here. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Of course not. They're going to keep that thing. Oh, there you go. That's about the biggest I can make it. All right. So you have Mark Zuckerberg over here talking to the AI version of this guy over here. This is a complete AI. Meanwhile, the guy that this AI is modeled after is right over here. So effectively, Meta is cloning us on the internet. Nothing could possibly go wrong with this. So there you have it. It would be more surreal if that guy was talking to Mark Zuckerberg, though, and Mark Zuckerberg were sitting there, because then we would have the solid confirmation that Mark Zuckerberg is actually that cyborg. We just have 2 copies of him. So there you have it. So I'm not interested in that. This is an interesting one. It deals with that self-checkout nonsense that we need to abolish. So now there's definitely something else going on here, but looking at the story for what it's worth, this is an Olympian. Life is destroyed after she forgot to scan asparagus and ham at a Walmart self-checkout. So you go into the Walmart self-checkout and, you know, believe it or not, most of us who go into Walmart and are forced to use the self-checkout, we're not expert cashiers. We don't know that when you're scanning the thing over, if it doesn't go beep, it's not in our basket. Now, maybe we should know this, but it's acceptable to say, yeah, maybe we don't necessarily know it, whatever, right? And so in this instance here, she goes into an Indiana Walmart. She buys $168 worth of things, $167 worth of things, and she was running the stuff through the self-checkout, $67 worth of items did not scan, including asparagus and ham. Now, was she manipulating the system to get around the scanner, or did she legitimately try to scan it and it just didn't scan and she didn't know it? But security for Walmart calls the police. Like, security should handle this. If Walmart is going to force people to check out their own stuff, maybe you need to deal with things a little bit better than calling the police. Now, I'm not a defund the police guy in the slightest. I think we need more police presence in many places. But calling the police because somebody went through a self-checkout line and stuff didn't scan is completely inappropriate. Now, if the security had a tape that showed her kind of hiding the ham down here because ham's expensive and it making it look like she scanned but deliberately getting around the scanner, that's one thing. But if she threw it over and the scanner just didn't pick it up and she's in a hurry and she didn't see it, that's just something altogether different. The thing is, Walmart has so much AI inside of their camera systems, and immediately the security should have pulled the footage to look at it. If it's very clear she looks like she scanned it, legitimately scanned it, and it just didn't go in, this is not a police call. You go in and you say, oh, you know what? A few items didn't scan. And I bet she'd go, oh my God, I am so sorry. Let's walk on over to the customer service desk and take care of this. All right. But if that footage suggests that she did something to get around the scanner to steal $67 worth of items, then possibly a police call could be warranted, or possibly you give her the benefit of the doubt and say, we noticed that $67 worth of stuff was not scanned. Let's go ahead and take care of that at customer service. But no, what happened is they call the police. The police, I guess, arrest her in the parking lot. I don't know. There's too many pieces of information missing in this article here. It doesn't tell us where they arrested her, but they arrested her and then they search her for the $67 worth of asparagus and ham. Must have been some good asparagus. And then they said they found vapes and nausea medication. It was prescription nausea medication. So they alleged the vapes were THC, although she says they weren't. And subsequently, they were found to not have anything illegal. It was just vapes. The pills were prescription. Now, you have to understand, this woman is a head coach. She had an assistant coach who's on the field running around not having a bag. The assistant coach says, hey, can you safeguard my prescription medication? Well, they forgot to get the prescription medication back, so now they pick her up on stealing $67 worth of asparagus and ham, THC that wasn't actually THC, and prescription medication that did not belong to her. But, of course, they pieced together and said, hey, okay, it was actually the other person. She forgot it. No big deal. They have ultimately dropped all charges against her, but this went so far, all because of self-checkout and Walmart's laziness. Now, I would really like to maybe see that security footage. Was she deliberately trying to steal the ham, or did it just legitimately not scan? A very cursory examination of all of the video taken at that self-checkout stand would have completely clarified that. And if it was just legitimately didn't scan, a call to the police is totally unwarranted. But if it was, she was doing something, she was deliberately putting her hand over the label to scan it so it didn't scan. If she was doing something deliberate, I completely understand at least a heightened response. But this is just utter nonsense, and yet one more reason why, I'm sorry, I will never use self-checkout. Deal with it. And finally, a Florida firm that teaches companies to recognize hackers accidentally hires a North Korean hacker. We covered the story about the North Korean hackers who stole thousands of Americans' identity and worked remotely for hundreds of Fortune 500 companies. Yeah, that was actually happening. And this is basically the same group. This guy, KnowBe4, a Florida-based company that trains more than 65,000 companies worldwide on how to spot internet security threats, reportedly got duped by one of the biggest internet security threats out there, a North Korean hacker. So this person passes all employment checks and video interviews using all AI manipulated videos and photos. Basically started with an AI, a photo, and created AI video out of it. So the company says they caught it early when someone started loading malware into the work issued laptop. Says no data was lost or stolen. Okay, so here's actually effectively the same picture, just slightly tweaking it. I'm not sure which direction it went. We can presume a North Korean hacker didn't want to present as North Korean over the internet, so presumably it started here and became the one on the left, so I don't know. But Grimes described this as a teachable moment for the company. It was just incredulous at first that we had been targeted, Grimes said. Not only did we find this fake employee, but you have to go back and go, do we have any other fake employees? Great. So the founder, according to one of the founders of Identify AI, another company that protects companies from being hacked, when a cybersecurity company that serves the cybersecurity companies gets exploited, it can cause a lot of problems. That's like saying it's really bad when the fire department burns down, or your AA sponsor passes out drunk, or the president of the United States has dementia. Great. How wonderful indeed. So there it is, folks. There it is. If you want to help support the channel, we do have a locals page, and we have our locals at switchedtolinux.locals.com. We'll have our next short story up there soon. As soon as I have the energy to edit it, it is all recorded. I just need to do the final edits. With that, guys, thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.